Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome again to the third edition of Echoes of Trinity. Today, we will be discussing the issues that we have relating to equality and the history of law enforcement in the United States, and we'll try to project that all over the world, since we have audience all over the world. I have with me two important personnel that will help us understand this issue. On my left is Venerable Dr. Olubenga Kimbola. He's Diocese Administrative Archdeacon. He's been in the ministry for many years. I will give him a little time to introduce himself. And on my right is our brother who is TSA officer, Wale Awola. Brother Wale, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Venerable, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
At this junction, ladies and gentlemen, we'll give our guests the opportunity to introduce themselves, to tell us about who they are, their profession, and what they do, and one or two insights that they may have relating to the upheaval that the whole world is experiencing, relating to the police brutality and the killing of the one George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Venerable Doctor.
Thank you very much, Bola. As he said, my name is Olubenga Kimbola. I'm an Archdeacon in the Anglican Diocese of the Trinity and the Administrative Archdeacon of the Diocese. I'm also an adjunct professor of Biblical Studies and Theology, and also Intercultural Studies, which is what I did my PhD in. I'm married, I have 2 kids, and we've been in the ministry for about 20 years now, to the glory of God. And I'm happy to be here and to contribute to this very, very important topic that the whole world has caused its fever.
Brother Awola.
Thank you, sir. My name is Olawale Awola. I work with the Department of Homeland Security, United States. I'm married. I've been in security profession for quite some time. And I hope we'll be providing you a lot of insight into the unrest we're currently facing.
Thank you, sir. And by the way, we didn't select these people to give us the view that we wanted, right?
Yes.
We just called them, and we haven't discussed anything beforehand relating to this topic, right? All right. So, Brother Olawale,
Yes, sir.
can you enlighten us about the history of law enforcement in the United States?
Thank you. The history of law enforcement in the United States started in Boston. That was where the first police was first established in 1838. Then later on, it spread to New York, Chicago in 1851, Philadelphia in 1855, Newark, New Jersey, Baltimore, and so on and so forth. So that was how the law enforcement started. Then it went on and on. So as we can all tell, then what comes to my mind is, what is the role of police in today's society? The role of police in today's society developed from history of crime, corruption, social change, technology. But let's say the first two full-time police was formed, the uniform police was formed and established in 1829 from the London Metropolitan Act. So,
And that part of the struggles that we have today actually may be related to the formation of police. Would you say?
Yes, it's partly, yeah, you are right. Then it is because, like I mentioned earlier on, now we have a lot of social changes. So, and technology which has developed over the years. So, it has gotten to the stage whereby policing today, in terms of crime, in terms of corruption, and in terms of all those things, has make it so difficult to be able to police effectively.
Venerable,
Yes.
given what Brother Wale has talked about in terms of the history of policing, can you speak to the culture as it was at the time that policing, because part of the issue is why did we need cops to begin with? Why we needed policing? Had to do with slavery, keeping them in line, and then when different immigrants came to here and the disturbance that they created, like Brother Wale talked about, Mr. Awola in Boston, the Irish came from Ireland and they were being unruly and all that type of stuff. So the culture continued to evolve. Can you speak to that, sir?
Thank you very much. Actually, the history of law enforcement in this country, US, we cannot divorce it from slavery when the people came from Europe, the people they met on ground, the Indians, and all these people. So, number one, there was a clash of cultures. And when you have clash of cultures, there's tension, there's violence, and all whatnot. So when you have those kind of things, right back from there, that tension needed some people to be able to sort of mediate, all right? And so you have law enforcement on one hand, then you have the creation of the legal system, judges on the other hand. But it was very much tilted to quote and unquote the Caucasian white community that has now gained a kind of population upper hand, and the immigrant community of slaves, which were very new to this whole system, coming from Africa and all those places where they brought in slaves from. And so all that sort of contributed into the detention and law enforcement that has now evolved even today, right from that time.
Venerable kind of alluded to this, the infrastructure of law enforcement. Mr. Wola, can you give us some understanding of the infrastructure of law enforcement in the United States?
Thank you. It's the infrastructure as I would say started with the training of the police. And like my venerable said, training and education is paramount here. It's very important. And I would not separate the judiciary and the
cops and the police. They are part of the same.
Yeah, they are part of the same system.
Okay.
So if you give proper training, then we have proper policing. Then the society will have a better understanding why we have police on the road while the organization is formed in the first instance. But because there is lack of proper training as part of the infrastructure, that is why we have this problem we are having right now nationwide and worldwide.
So the American system of government, we have the executive branch, which consists of the president and everyone that work in their cabinets and all the agencies, like the CIA, the FBI, and all of those people in the executive branch. And then you have the judges, the judiciary branch, and the legislative arm. So can you speak to law enforcement creation and execution with all of those three branches of government?
Well, thank you. The first thing I will say is police department or law enforcement and the judiciary, they need proper funding from the government.
Okay.
When they have proper funding, then that means the infrastructures we are talking about, what it takes to get them well trained, what it takes to get them to the society they are trying to provide safety for without fear, then that will go a long way to solve some of the problems from the government. So.
In terms of the culture, I think you started to speak regarding that, Venerable, the tension that exists between the dominant culture, which was the the Western European culture. They had the power, they had the wealth, they had the education, and obviously
even the science and the technology at that time.
And their thoughts mostly went into the formation of this branch of this infrastructure, in terms of even the judges that are appointed, and most of them are the ones that become the judges. Most of them are the ones that become even the cops. So what hope does a minority have when they interact with this system?
Thank you very much. Before I go very much deep into the question you asked, it's good we sort of cast our mind back to these immigrant communities, both the Indian community they met here and the African community that were brought as slaves. These communities, let me start with the African community, they were not governed by quote-unquote police force. The legal system for most of the African countries were governed by the kingship system, right? It was ruled kings and authority not until when the colonial masters came and established a different kind of system over us. Even though there were local policies, but it was entrenched in the family system, the tribal system of interrelationship. All right? And it was the same almost for the Indian community. So when the Europeans came and brought immigrants, slaves as it were, to this place, number one, the African culture, it was strange to them. Apart from the fact that the way and manner the slaves were brought from Africa and all the places they were brought from, it was dehumanizing, you know. So there was already that kind of suppression, anger, frustration that was pervading the whole relationship at that time. So as regards what can be the hope, I think we really need to understand one another. We need to understand culture of the people, the way people reason. Where we come from originally, they say police is your friend. Where we come from, police is not your friend. I mean, they say that if you see a policeman and you see someone that is maybe committing, so it's better you align with that person, because if you do to a policeman, you will, he will betray you at the end of the day. So coming with that mindset
of distrust,
of various kinds of injustice has been perpetuated. I think there needs to, Mr. Wola talked about training education. I think there needs to be a kind of, everybody needs to see, we need to understand culture. Clash of cultures always creates it. We need to understand each other. There needs to be a continuous effort to make sure that we do not revert to anything that will entrench evil and injustice within the land. Listen to what the other person is saying, and if in this country the black community, the African American community has been shouting about injustice, I think that people need to listen. People need to listen. And I know later on in the program we'll come down, break it down to the recent events that have just done, and we'll look at what has contributed to that.
At this time, I will go to Venerable Alexis de Tocqueville, who was a great philosopher, an inspiring author, credited the origin of American racism from the slavery culture. He remarked that among the moderns, the abstract and the transient fact of slavery is fatally united with the physical and permanent fact of color. He wrote that though slavery was going down, receding, but prejudice to which he gave part has become even more immovable. Venerable, is Alexis de Tocqueville, is he right?
To a large extent, I think he's right. In fact, to a very great extent, I think he's right, because in one way or the other, we are all prejudiced towards something or towards someone, and we tend to interpret things based on the way we're brought up, and there are some things that are innate in us.
What they call implicit bias.
Implicit bias, exactly. But especially things that you have learned over time, it becomes part and parcel of you. So for example, if you have been brought up in an environment that sees only people of your own kind, all right? Like we have in this country, people that have only seen Caucasians like themselves. The very first day, and there are still communities like that in this country. The very first time they see someone that is of darker skin or someone that is toned differently, they behave differently. Coupled with the fact that the way the media has portrayed people of other color, it has also been entrenched within our system. And also, I begin to look at this whole thing, canon, like you have asked, and with this author that you have quoted, I begin to look at it. Who are the people that gave these nomenclatures to all these things that we are talking about? Black, white, brown, yellow.
It's not in the Bible.
It's not in the Bible. Who gave it? Who are the people that sat down? So you will see that because all these things came from the Europeans, they sort of put themselves, when you say black and white, what do you think about? You think white as opposed to good, white, holiness, then you think of black, evil, that kind of a thing. Yesterday, I was still talking with my wife, and I asked her a question. I said, even when you look at the world map, America is placed on top, Europe is placed on top. Where did they put Africa and South America? Below. Who determined north, south, north being up, south being down? Who are the people? And when you look at it, these were all things that are entrenched in the literature of European Americans. And so by the time you read all these things, and you have been brought up with all these things, you find out that dictates the way you behave, the way you see other people. You see other people of a different color as lower than you. Their culture is inferior to your own culture. You see us clapping as Africans, jumping up, then you are angry. You say these people are shouting. Then they are singing, and they are singing in a very low tone. Then we look at them and we say they don't have the spirit. You know, so we all have these things, and that's why we need to question and retrain and ask God to really help us in sort of rewiring ourselves so that we can be better people in our society.
Mr. Awola,
Yes, sir.
your training as an agent of law enforcement, with all these factors taken into consideration, you were trained here as a law enforcement agent of the TSA. Did they talk to you about how to get rid in your administration of justice this implicit bias?
Thank you. No law enforcement officer in the country, and there is nowhere in the country that talks about
Implicit bias.
implicit bias. So it is not entrenched because it is not entrenched in the Constitution. So no law officer will say, yes, this is what I'm going out there to do. You see, it sometimes like I will agree we have some bad eggs.
Agents, yeah.
Yeah, I will agree. But with the training, there is no bias with the training. But because individual, like I will agree, there are a few bad ones, bad eggs. So, and it's, I think, like the Venerable said, it all dated back to the way some set of people based on color look at others. So, and it has caused a lot of division within the law enforcement agencies. So, we definitely need to put ourselves in a situation whereby we look at ourselves as equal, but in reality, it is not.
Now, I want you to leave your academic cap
Yes.
or hat and put on your clergy hat.
If that is possible. Okay.
And speak to our audience regarding, because I think for there to be a change, there needs to be repentance.
Yes.
What is it that the world needs to be repentant of regarding this issue?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. I think first thing is we need to, what the whole thing we are talking about, prejudice, stereotypes, discrimination, is sin. I mean, and tribalism, everything is sin. And we need to first of all repent of that sin. And when we talk about the issue of reconciliation or repentance, I think it's a two-way street really. You need to deal with God on that level, and that is what 2 Chronicles 7:14 enjoins us to do, to repent of our evil ways and turn to God, essentially. But I also think there needs to be a kind of calling for repentance and forgiveness of each other. I think the Caucasian community needs to apologize to the African American community and all the other communities, and vice versa, because we've offended one another. And until that time, this issue of accepting and owning up to the things that we have entrenched in our system, and it's not one versus the other. All of us are contributory to this whole issue. So we need to repent of that. We also need to repent of the sin of looking at each other as lesser. there is in theology the principle of the imago, the doctrine of the imago Dei. That is, we are all made in the image of God. All of us. No matter your color, no matter your education, no matter your enlightenment, whether you are rich or poor, we are all made in the image. And so we need to, first of all, see each other on that level. You are a human being, I'm a human being. Whether I can speak your language or not, I must embrace you first. And we need to repent of that we've treated each other as lesser human beings that can just be displaced. And it is this issue that I have with the photo op that was done by our president a few days ago. While we are not trying to be political, but people were protesting, all you could think of was, let's disperse them with tear gas. They are not human beings. So that I can go to a church and hold the Bible. What's the correlation? It means that you are seeing those people, they are just non-entities. I think that sin needs to, and that's what we are not getting from our leadership. If our leaders can come up and really condemn and apologize, it doesn't matter if you are the one doing it or not. Daniel, when he prayed for the people, we could term Daniel as a holy man. But when he was praying in the book of Daniel, he included himself.
Pray for the same
of everybody. He included himself. And that is what I think we need to do. These people did not bring slaves. Forefathers did it. But we are reaping the results. And so we need to repent of that also.
Mr. Olawale, Awola, we have talked about the concept of imago Dei, all men being created in the image of God. I know that they don't deal with spirituality in your training. How can the law enforcement training encapsulate what do you think needs to change in your training that will encapsulate and put into the mind of law enforcement officers this concept of treating everyone with equality when they interact with them?
Well, thank you. This has been a long time battle. Like I said earlier on, people needs to be oriented. We need to change the perspective. We need to change the way people look at each other based on either color, skin. Once we improve on that, then things will get better.
How can that be improved with the training?
Training is good so far, but what I would say is this: there needs to be better understanding of why we have police on the streets. There needs to be improvement and education, training-wise, both on the law enforcement and on the community itself. The idea of seeing a police as an enemy shouldn't be like that. We should coexist. The primary aim of an officer when you go out is to prevent crime. So, but to be able to do that, we need the cooperation of the community. So that there needs to be better relationship between the law enforcement and the public.
Can I add to briefly add to what Mr. Wola has just said? I think I was listening to a radio program a few days ago and was talking about the fact that many of these policemen, many of them don't live in the community where they serve.
No, that's true. That's true.
I think that needs to change in a practical way. And it also, that happens again in in some of the African countries where they stay in barracks, that kind of. So that kind, a policeman that will serve in a community, I think in a way they should be encouraged to stay within that community. In that way, they will be able to see whatever is going on as impacting on their own lives too. And in that way, they can also be part of the agenda that can improve police relationship.
And knowledge of the community.
Yeah.
The important key people.
The important key people. For example, in this Indianapolis, they are involving religious leaders and leaders in community. They have a 10-point coalition where community leaders are brought together on a constant meeting with the police so that they can understand the needs of the community. If that policeman in Minnesota had lived in the same community where George Floyd lived and probably was his neighbor, I'm not sure he would treat him that way. I'm not sure. I mean, there may be other things going on, but I'm not sure. If he sees him, probably they go to the same supermarket, or his son goes to the son of the police. There's that kind of a thing when you get to know someone. So involving leaders in the community, let the policemen also exist within the community where they serve. I think those are other practical steps apart from what he has mentioned that can be taken.
Yeah, still continuing in that line, part of what he talked about is the training of the community.
Yes.
What role, first of all, as individual Christian, and second of all, as a community of Christians, as a church, what role do you see for one, a Christian individual, and two, as a community of faith? What role do you see for us playing to help this education?
Thank you very much. First, let me take from the community, the church. What can the church do? I think we as a church need to educate our people. For example, in these dioceses, we've reached out to the police. They come here from time to time. They want to know our needs. They want to know how we are faring. What can they do in order to better help us? So we as a church can interact with them and make our people comfortable with them. Also, we can educate our people. Many of our, like I mentioned before, many of our congregants, African immigrants, so to say, because of the mentality we come with, that police is out there to get you, to implicate you in one crime or the other, we come to this country with that same mentality. I was a victim of that when I came. I feared the police, not until when I mean, everybody, no matter your level of education, because of where we are coming from, but interacting with them. So we need to educate our people, educate them, and make them also evolve programs that can bring the police to interact with them. And I think also we need to also, as we reach out to the police community, we need to let them know that trust is a two-way street. If they don't trust us, we don't trust them, then the situation gets worse. Now, as individuals, we are told to love. We are told to love. We are enjoined in the scriptures. All these things that we're talking about, discrimination, is not encouraged in the scriptures. I think as individuals, it's left for us to determine and to make it a resolution in our hearts not to encourage anything that will be equal to all these things. Teach our children the same. All right, teach our children. I mean, it was part of our devotion this morning as a family, and I was telling my kids, I said, you have to see that person that is in your class as a human being. First of all, talking about the story of the Good Samaritan. So we have to teach our families, ourselves, make a resolution not to encourage any form. Lastly, I think we also, as individuals, need to always want to do what is right. Because, like I always say, even for our profession as clergymen, if you are conducting a service make sure you do what you are supposed to do. With that, if they try to fault you, then you can always say, look, I followed what is here. So as individuals, maintain good speed limit, don't be violent, drive well, all things that they encourage us to do as good citizens of a country. Make up your mind to do it. Then if you find someone trying to maybe sort of discriminate against, then we can deal with that on that level. But if you do what is right, you can even argue it in the court of law. And who knows, you may win. Most of the time you will win. So, yeah.
Let me quickly add, the ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police actions. So the police must be sure and willing to cooperate with the public. Then so also is the public. So when we have that kind of degree of cooperation and public trust, then the police will be able to effectively discharge their duties without rancor. So I agree that there needs to be reforms in the police department, in the law enforcement department, and the judicial system too. Because sometimes people still fear, oh, I don't want to go to court because I'm black. So if we start from reforming those systems, then things will get a lot better. These systems, let the public know these systems are there for you to make use of. Not something you should run away from because you are scared. So on both sides, there should be a level of degree of cooperation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll have one more question. And I think we will close after that. Racial thoughts. Because all these things that we are talking about start from our thoughts. How do we identify and deal with racial thoughts within ourselves, within our family, within our community?
Thank you. As Christians, we resort to the words of the scriptures to guide us. The psalmist prayed, he says, try me and see if there be any unclean way within me. I think as individuals, we need to start from there. Ask the Lord to search us, according to Psalm 139, to search us, to sort of, if I will use another word, to critique us, to make us see our sin and be able to repent. I think it has to start from there. As we go out to engage people, God searching as individuals. Secondly, as individuals, I think we need to reach out, make it a conscious effort to attend maybe your community events, starting from your neighborhood. I want to speak especially to the African community, the African immigrant community, because we are not trained to or wired to interact. They have this community event. They are not looking for me there. Maybe I don't want anybody. And these are areas where people can network, people get to know one another, and all these things. And we need to intentionally do that. In this country, they do it a lot. Have barbecue events. They are not just, I don't think most of those events are not just for fun. They are meant to bridge the gap between people. So when we just moved to a new neighborhood, they had a meeting there as a sort of interaction meeting. I told my wife and kids, I said, we must go there. Let's get to meet. Let's not always say they are bad, or they are prejudiced. If they are talking, you also have mouth to talk. It's when you are not there, they can take decisions behind you, but you can register your opinion.
Yeah.
Thank God in this country we have minority opinion, majority opinion, and in many countries of the world. And they don't need to take your opinion, but you register it. And they will say, well, somebody said. So attend, reach out in the community, and the same thing applies to the church also. We need to encourage outreach programs, getting to, even if they have a different religious belief than us, ecumenism, right? Even if they have a different religious belief, we need to move out to them. It's when you understand them, those other people you call them, then you are able to interact. And by the time we keep doing that, we'll find out that all these racial tendencies, ethnic tendencies will begin to be destroyed in one way or the other. And that is where I think the generation of our children will do better than us, because they are already beginning to live in that culture, that inclusive culture, and they're able to see things differently from the way we do them. So we need to intentionally involve ourselves in prayer, in community events.
Bro, Wale, you have a last question.
Okay.
And this incident, part of what we all noticed about it is that it wasn't just one cop. One was kneeling on Mr. George Floyd's neck, and two of them were kneeling on his back, and the other one was protecting them as they were doing this unjust act. As a law enforcement officer, when you see this racist action, racist thoughts going on with your colleagues, how do you approach them to fix this without being recriminated against?
Thank you. First, let me just say condolence to the Floyd family. It was a bad thing. I watched the video. It was really bad. That is not the way police or any law enforcement officer is being treated. So let's get that clear. So, the way going forward, like we've talked on this program, racial profiling, we need to improve on it. And there are ways we could improve on it, especially we Africans. We need to know what the society has for us. We need to get more involved in the society program. We need to be enlightened. We need to be more educated. That is how and when we can stand up for what is good against what is bad.
But what about you personally? What are the methods or what avenue will be available for you if you notice something like that going on and you need to intervene?
There is this common saying in security. Say, see something, say something. When you see something that is bad,
Say it.
say it. If you can't stop it, talk about it. So if you see a bad cop, bad officer did something wrong, then stand up and say, oh, this is wrong.
And I think we can learn from that too.
Yes.
If I think a policeman treated me wrongly, just take his name.
Yeah, you have the right. You have the right to ask a policeman. I'm talking about this country anyway. You have the right to ask a policeman. Like if you get pulled over, definitely the first thing they're supposed to tell you is the reason why I pulled you over. If the policeman doesn't tell you that, then you have the right to ask, why did you stop me? Why did you stop? Why did you pull me over? Because you want to know what your offense is.
If there is.
If there is. So, those are the things you need. Like I said, if you see something, say something. So that's simply put.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in this very intense, energetic conversation about law enforcement and equality in the United States.